can't see.
Okay, hang on. And we are live. Okay, you know what I forgot to do? Okay,
But
yay. All right. Hello, Robin Farmer.
there.
I am so excited to sit with you today.
Me too. Me too.
The last time we did an interview, we were on the opposite sides of the table. You were interviewing me for and then there was me. And now I get to return the favor. How lucky am I? So, Robin, we are both from the same place, right? So I grew up in Philadelphia.
City of brotherly love and sisterly affection.
Yes, ma'am. Where did you grow up in Philly?
Southwest Philly.
Okay, I grew up in Logan, so more, I guess that's northeast.
Northeast.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And when did you come to Richmond?
So I can't believe that I have lived here longer than I lived in Philadelphia. I came here in 87. Can you
Wow.
believe that? I came here for maybe 1 year or 2 years, and then I'd go back to the Philadelphia Inquirer. But life is what happens when you have other plans. Because
Yeah.
I met Mike, right? And if I had to come to Richmond to meet my husband, okay.
That's what else could be better than meeting your husband and sticking around, right? Yeah, and we met. Okay, help me remember, Robin, how we met. JRW?
I think didn't Stacy
Oh,
introduce us before
possibly,
JRW? I think, but
possibly.
we definitely connected through JRW because I would ask you every year, can you come? Can you help me with the conference, please?
Yes.
And I don't know if I told you this, but I was at a conference up in Boston and I was begging this speaker to come participate. And someone walked up and said, "Oh, that's the Sadiqa's conference." And they all were like, "Your Amen Corner." So because it was your conference, they were like, "Oh,
Wow. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. And so, Bloom, we're talking about the James River Writer Conference. So, Robin and I both are from Philadelphia, and now somehow we both live in Richmond. And so, Robin is really, really connected to James River Writers, and she was what is it called that you did for
conference
the
chair."
conference? Conference chair,
Conference
yes.
chair.
Conference chair for a couple of years. We were on the board together at the James River Writers. So we have that kind of James River writer thing in between us. And I remember always seeing you at the writing show.
Right.
Those are my memories of like our first encounters is meeting you at the writing show.
And we did one together on telling the emotional truth, remember?
Yes, yes, yes. So that was really good. Yeah. So you are here. Introduce yourself to our Bloom audience. Tell us a little bit about you.
So are they bloomers, bloomies, blooms?
I like to call them bloomies. I don't know what the other tall poppies call them, but I like bloomies. Let's go with bloomies.
Hey, bloomies. So I am a longtime journalist who's coming out with a debut novel, and it feels so good to say that after so many years. I also dabble in poetry and screenwriting and short stories, and I also freelance. So I will write for food, right? And what else you want to know?
Yeah. So I know that you said that you started off as a journalist. So what is the leap like for you? I mean, being a journalist and being a novelist, to me, that's two different sides of your brain. What's that transition like for you?
So what helps the biggest transferable skill is I can write on a deadline,
Mm.
which was a good thing because my book was moved up 7 months early, right? But I have an eye for detail. I have an ear for dialogue. And even though I was a journalist, I did a lot of non-narrative fiction techniques to my special projects, narrative stories that span 3 days, lots of inches. So you can kind of borrow from each other in a sense, I think.
Mm-hmm. So dialogue, I'm so glad you mentioned that. That is like one of my favorite things writing is dialogue. Now, I'll tell you my secret for dialogue and you'll have to tell me yours. So this is my big secret. When I go to a restaurant, and I am with my husband or family or whatever, if I hear people telling something, some sort of interesting story, I am looking at the people at my table, but I am what people in Philly call ear hustling the table next to me, ear hustling the table next to me. And I'm listening to the way they speak and their diction and the emphasis they put on different words. And so when I sit down to write dialogue, I bring all of that to the table with me. And it's really one of my strongest skills as a writer and one of my favorite things to do. So what's your big secret for dialogue?
So that's funny. What you do in the world of journalism, we call that overhears. And when you hear overhears that are really good, write it down, right? But for me, as a fiction writer, for my book, what helps me first, whatever the dialogue is, I have to read it out loud. And then I let the computer read it back, because the computer's not going to put the inflection in it, right? But then I can hear it a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Now you let the computer read back your dialogue, but let's talk a little bit about your writing process for the novel. So one of my tips is I like to read each chapter out loud to someone or to myself, just because sometimes I can catch things that I can't catch when I'm actually reading it. And so do you read the whole thing out loud? Do you have your husband sit down and read to him? Like, how do you process? How do you do that process?
For me, I take it, drop it, and I pick up randomly. I go out of order, right? Because I want to see if it can stand on its own. And then if I can trace it back. Mm-hmm. So I seldom read from beginning to end, which might not be a good idea, but I just don't do that, right? I do read it out loud. My husband doesn't read it out loud, but God knows he's read this thing so many times. What else? I also go through and I do emotional checks, because, I'm always talking about this emotional truth. And so, for example, my character's a teenager. And teenagers are trapeze artists in the mood department, right? Happy, sad, mad, mean, right? And so it was important that she not be a one-note pony. And so I go through this story and I color code emotions, because pages are the same color. It's not a good look, right? So I do emotion checks. I make sure that the emotions are well earned and they are visible. Can't all be in your head, right? Got to show me something. Let me feel it. So that's one thing that I do.
That emotional check really just made me very thirsty for your book, because let me tell you, I have a 12, a 15, and a 16-year-old in my house, and we are in the midst of COVID, and I am in the midst of virtual school. So I am feeling every single emotional check. I got yellow, I got orange, I got pink, I got green, Robin. So I'm sure I could probably fit right in that story.
Yeah. Teens are like everywhere, right?
Oh my goodness.
Right. And even though, my story starts off with something bad happening, but I knew she wasn't going to be a pity party for 272 pages. She's funny.
Right. So speaking of 274 pages, I'm dying to hear about Malcolm and Me. Tell us about your story.
So it's about, and this doesn't sound terribly sexy, but it is what it is. It's about a young teen's search for that elusive thing called truth at a time when the most important adults in her life have a problem telling it. And I said it during the 1973-74 school year, where even the president's lying, Watergate, right? It's about adult hypocrisy. That's a biggie. And
oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I noticed that she went to Catholic school, so I wanted to know if there was any connection there for you.
Let's see. Roberta Forrest, Robin Farmer. Kid, what you think?
Yeah, sounds like it. I also went to Catholic school, and I do remember struggling. Yeah, I went to Catholic school from K through 8th in Philadelphia. I went to Holy Child on Broad Street. And I do remember having moments of struggling, with everything that happened in the school. I do remember those moments of struggle and those moments of questioning my identity and asking questions that no one wanted to answer.
That's what the book's about. It's a love letter to every young Black girl who was criticized for being too smart, too loud, and too strong.
Wow. 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 I have a lot of friends who would really, really relate to that story. So I saw today on your website that you had just a couple of lines about the book. And this is what you said. Philly is funny like that. Go 6 blocks in one direction, and the neighborhood takes on a new flavor, bright and fresh like butterscotch tasty cake, or as tough and unappetizing as a week-old pretzel. Whew.
Girl, I had to work the Philly foods in there.
It made my mouth water. I could see the Tasty Cake Factory because my mom doesn't live far from the Tasty Cake Factory.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, anybody who comes to our house from Philly, they always bring a bag of pretzels.
They want
Always.
pretzels. They want water ice, but I guess that's not really a Philly thing anymore, right? Because you can
It
buy
felt like it growing up that water ice was a Philly thing.
And definitely, I don't eat it anymore, but I did eat Scrapple as a kid. I did.
So let me tell you a story about Scrapple. So I grew up not eating pork. My dad would not allow us to eat pork,
Okay.
but my dad's mother ate pork. So every time we went to her house, she would fry a Scrapple. and so we would tell her like, Mom, my dad said we can't have pork. My grandmother kept a beef wrapping in the refrigerator. So when we questioned if it was pork or not, she would reach and pick and pull out the wrapping of a beef, and then she would feed it to us. And so I also ate Scrapple, even though I wasn't supposed to.
And cheesesteaks and hoagies and
Yeah.
So I thought it was important to bring in the Philly flavor.
Yeah. What was that like for you though? Because you didn't live there for, now more than half your life. How does memory work for you? Like, was it hard for you to get back to that place, or was it 1, 2, 3?
So some emotional anchors are your senses, right? Like certain songs just took me back, right? Made me feel what I felt then, right? Certain foods made me think about it, but also those years were so important to me. I just kind of remember it, but it's also the book is about growing and finding yourself and finding your voice. And really, does that ever stop?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we're grown, but in some situations, I still have that vulnerable feeling that I had as a young teen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a couple of people now who are jumping on to say hi. So I just want to take a minute to say hi to Wanda Reese.
Oh, Wanda!
I want to say hi to LaRonda Jenkins. Someone said the video stopped, so I'm hoping we're doing okay. I see you talking, so I think we should be fine.
Okay.
We'll keep going. So I think we should be fine. So tell me, what is something that you want your readers when they read this book? What is something that you want them to take away from this book?
Yeah, so a key takeaway for me is I want readers of all ages, but especially young readers, to realize it's okay to forgive those who hurt you and who hurt you deeply. And it doesn't mean that, you have to be friends, but hate is a heavy load to carry. And, you look around and we need more empathy in this world. I mean, just look at how divided we are as a nation, right? And so I think reading can help you develop empathy. And I hope my readers are empathetic enough to realize that forgiveness is really important.
And how long did it take you to write this book? Because yesterday when I was talking to Nancy Johnson, we both kind of agreed that as writers, we start a book, and we have no idea where we're going with it, when it's coming out, what the world is going to look like. And the fact that this book, Malcolm and Me, is so timely right now. Talk a little bit about when you started the book and how it just happened to magically fit in everything that we're going through in America right now.
Well, it's timely because it's timeless. Because when did we ever in a nation not grapple with race, right? Or corruption in the White House, right? Or uh, dysfunctional families. So I'm going to try to give you the short answer to this because this is a journey. Do you remember when Aquila and the Bee came out?
The movie or the play?
The movie.
Loved it. Yes.
So wasn't that like around 2006?
About that. Yeah.
So I bring that up because this story started off as a screenplay. And it was a screenplay that I got to her agent. And I sent it to her agent at 2:00 in the morning because I figured, it'll be on top of the email pile when she comes in. Well, lo and behold, 20 minutes later, she sends me an email back. Have your agent send it. I don't have an agent. Have your lawyer send it. I don't have a lawyer. So then they made me sign all these papers so that they could read it, sign my life away, right? And so in the interim, she's bombarding me with questions. Do you have a director attached? Do you have financing? I'm like, lady, I'm just a writer, right? So anyway, it took 6 months for them to say it wasn't the right thing for Kiki.
Uh-huh.
But I learned a valuable lesson. Always have something else to pitch. I didn't. I only had like that screenplay, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when I decided to turn it into a novel. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I got to tell you, I put the pro in procrastination. Years went by. And then in 2010, I don't know if you've ever read Heidi Dorow's The Girl Who Fell from the Sky. Girl, I read that book. Literally, I took my manuscript and put it in the trash can.
Oh, wow.
Because it was so different and so emotionally true. Okay. So Facebook was new at that time. So I went on Facebook and I found her and I said, Heidi, I just want you to know I read your book and it means so much to me. Thank you. Well, to my surprise, she friended me. You would have thought it was Michael Jackson.
Wow.
So fast forward, because I put the pro in procrastination, 2014, because I'm Facebook friends with her, I see that she's going to teach a 5-day workshop on how to write your debut novel without an MFA.
Wow, Robin. That is amazing. First of all, I just want to say, as a reporter, your skills come in handy, right? Because you found Keke Palmer's agent. Now you found the writer. I mean, yes, those two skills work really well together for you.
I was an investigative reporter, but
okay.
So she was going to pick 7 people based on the first 50 pages of their manuscript. I had 50 pages. I hadn't finished it, but I had 50. So I was selected. She is a beautiful person, and she's like you. She shares her resources with other writers. So she taught us so much. But what happened that changed everything? We were sitting in the barn, I don't know what else to call it, and the executive director came to give us greetings. And she said, you only get here by invitation, and we only invite artists. Mm. And for the first time in my life, I said, I'm an artist. And that changed everything. Because I never thought of myself as an artist. I thought, I can write pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. It changed everything. And so she said, we always select one person from the different workshops to come for a month-long residency, which they're really competitive. And I thought, okay, I'll apply, but I'll never get it. 3 months later, we had the house fire. Mm. And we lost every book we owned, including those that were autographed.
Oh my God.
We only had the clothes on our backs. And I'm sitting in the ambulance. I wasn't hurt, but I kind of wanted to get away from everyone and just be by myself. And I'm sitting in the ambulance and I'm watching my house burn. And this is going to sound super crazy, but I remember thinking, at least I'm alive to finish my book.
Wow.
And so that fire lit a fire, another kind. So that was 2015. So in December of 2015, I sent Heidi a note and I said, I really hope next year is better. And I know Heidi had something to do with me getting that residency. You know what I'm saying? I know she did.
Yes.
I know she did. And so in 2016, I went and we went around the room and we all introduced ourselves. And when it was my turn, I said, hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm going to write 35,000 words. And the executive director said, that's fine. But the whole reason for you to be here is to just be. And I thought, okay, I'll just be. But I still wrote 22,000 words.
Well, that's amazing.
Some of them were good. Yeah. So that was 2016. So when I came back from that, I had beta readers. And then because I know the power of a residency, I applied for the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts to, elevate it. Mm-hmm. So I got that. So that's 2017. So 2018, I hired an editor to read it, someone who didn't know me.
And how important was that, Robin? Like hiring an editor? Talk a little bit about that for people who are writing at home and they don't know what to do next. What was that experience like for you?
I think it's real important to get someone who doesn't necessarily know you and doesn't necessarily like you. And is a professional to look over your stuff, because I think, you ask your friends to read and you can be discriminating, but they still like you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I hired the editor. I said, I don't want people all up in my amen corner. I got to get this right.
Yeah.
So I hired that editor and it turned out she did like it, right? But I said, let me try one more time. And I hired a second editor who wasn't so crazy about it. So I knew the truth was somewhere between the two, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
But as far as the money, I consider it an investment in yourself. It's professional development.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of going to a conference, maybe you should put that money aside and hire an editor. Yeah. Because you need someone who's objective, who's familiar with your genre, if you're, writing genre, and someone who can really help you elevate your skill set.
Yeah.
So I hired these editors and I'm sending stuff out to agents and I'm doing Twitter pitch wars, Pit Mad or whatever. I'm doing all this stuff and I'm getting, nice rejections. And so last year I saw this contest with She Writes Press and Spark Press.
Oh, I've heard of She Writes Press. They get a lot of really good authors and good stories.
And I knew I have author friends who have worked with them and I knew they were reputable. So I said, well, let me enter this contest. And at one point, I remember saying, you need to go back and check something before you send it. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to win anyway. Send.
Wow. And then you won. And
then I won, and the book was supposed to come out in June 2021, but then we had the pandemic and the world exploded.
My
and
goodness.
Black Lives Matter and all the things that are in my book, corruption in the Oval Office, everything, social activism, everything, it just was in the 70s. Right. Yeah. And so it kind of mirrors it, because in the 70s, we had the Black Power movement. Now we have Black Lives Matter. We had Shirley Chisholm running for president. Right. Now we have Kamala Harris. So not just for Black girls, Black and brown girls have someone to look up to. So, yeah, it's funny how it just kind of mirrored everything that's going on.
Wow, that I just got chills. I mean, that was just, first of all, you have some acting skills, Miss Lady. I feel like you could turn all of that into like a one-woman show, Miss Robin. Yes, you can do that. And so what is your hope for readers who, may say this book is not for me. I'm not a Black woman. I had, this is not an experience that I've had. How can this book be good for them?
Well, so she's at a predominantly white school. She's got white friends, right? So I think everyone can see a little bit of themselves in it. But I also think she's a girl with universal appeal. You look at her and you think she's a little rebel upstart with her outsized afro. And she's just as sensitive as she can be, writing poetry, right? Loving stories like Those Who Walk Away from Omelas, right? A really diverse character.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking at our chat and I see that Wendy says you are an amazing artist, Robin Farmer. So excited for you. Sonia Johnson. Hey, Sonia. That's our girl, Sonia from JRW. She said hello.
Sonia was one of my beta readers.
Oh, was she? And Robin, you were one of my beta readers for Yellow Wife. So look at that circle of influence that we have with each other, right? LaRonda said, you are fabulous, my friend, wishing you the best. Anita Martin said, that book cover is awesome. I absolutely love that cover. And I remember on Facebook, you showed a couple of different versions of it. How did you all get to that particular cover?
So they sent me five.
Bring it a little closer so we can see it up close, Robin.
They sent me five different covers, and they were all really good. But this one made my heart flutter, literally. And I said to my husband, it's this one.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is when I was a young teen, that was my hair.
Mine too, Robin.
And it's funny because anyone who knows me knows that I love purple and the colors are just so dynamic. So yeah, I really, really fell in love with the cover. And I have to say, working with this team, it was the best.
Yeah.
And even though it was moved up 7 months, we got it done.
We got it done. And that's what's important. I think when you have a good publishing house behind you, you have a good team, you make things happen. So this is a week of first time for us here on Bloom. The Bloom audience knows that I've been sharing my first times all week and been having a really good time with coming up with first time. So I want to ask you, when was the first time you realized that your parents weren't perfect?
Yeah, I remember because I was about 8 years old. This is embarrassing to admit. I might have actually been almost 9, but it's when I found out that there was no Santa Claus. Oh, there's no kids watching it. Right?
Don't worry.
So I found out there was no Santa Claus right around the time that I found out there was no Easter Bunny or Tooth Fairy. And I didn't know what it meant, but I remember telling my mom, man, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. Y'all can't tell the truth, right? It was just like, why are adults in on this big lie? Why didn't you tell us about Santa Claus? And made me so delusional that I thought that I heard him, It was around that time that I was like, what? Kind of looking at him sideways, right?
Yeah.
It was about
Huh. That's a really good question. I guess the first time it probably, I think for me, when I think about my parents, I'm still really upset that they got a divorce.
My book's kind of about divorce. Yeah.
And so I guess not. So as an adult now, looking back, I realized that if it was my husband and I, and we had those issues, and it probably would be best for us just to separate, figure out what to do with the kids.
Right.
But as the kid, I didn't understand that. And so I would say that probably was my first time realizing that they weren't perfect because they couldn't keep it together. They couldn't stay together, not even for my benefit,
How old were you?
It started, I would say for me, it probably started around 8 or 9 that I could feel the friction, but I feel like they finally broke up around 10, 11. Is when they actually finally broke up. And I'm the oldest of 4 kids. And so
Oh,
as the oldest girl, a lot of that responsibility then was shifted on me. And so that's where I could feel the imperfection because I was doing things that a kid shouldn't have to do,
I'm the oldest of 4, and I had to do things that a kid shouldn't have to do. So my parents separated when I was 4. So my mom was a single mom for a long time. The divorce wasn't official until I was 8. But she, and so I had to help.
Yeah.
I had to help.
Yeah, I had to help too. And, it would get to the point where I would be like, I need a break from you guys, like I need to get out of here. Like it was just way too much responsibility, just way too much responsibility. And, they still did the best that they could, at as a parent, as a wife now, I look back on it and say, if things were different between us, that could have been my situation and how would I have handled it, And so it takes a minute, but you have to think about it. And I've worked on like the forgiveness aspect of it, that's
What,
a big
what
part.
one of my takeaways, forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
But also the fact that we had so much responsibility on our tiny little shoulders, in a way, kind of helped us, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do. I definitely feel stronger. And, your story is your story. This is our story. This is my story. And, I have to stand proud in my truth or I'm not standing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a book to give away, a
I
copy
do.
of Malcolm and Me, and I just want to let the Bloomies, our Bloomers, our Bloom audience know that you guys are getting a very special treat because Robin is my friend and I don't have a copy of Malcolm and Me, but I am going to jump online and pre-order my copy because I want to support Robin and make sure that that first week of sales is so good for you. So you're going to give away a copy. So tell our viewers what they need to do to win this free copy of Malcolm and Me.
So just go and answer the question. How should I phrase this? How old were you when you first realized that your parents weren't perfect?
Hmm. Yeah.
And then they can just write that on your page, right?
So what you guys do is write in this same video underneath there's comments, so just write your comments, and what Robin will do tomorrow is come into the comments, read everybody, and pick a random winner. So good luck. I want you to get a copy of Malcolm and Me, so make sure you respond and give Robin a good comment. Robin, will you please tell everybody how they can stay in touch with you?
Yes, you can go to my website, Robin Farmer Writes, WRITES.com. I couldn't get just robinfarmer.com because a realtor in Tennessee had it. So I said, okay, Robin Farmer Writes. And listen, I just want to say, I know some of my homegirls are there. I want to encourage you to also pre-order Yellow Wife. I've read every one of her books. She's the truth, nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I am so grateful to have my fellow Philadelphian / fellow Richmonder here in the Bloom audience with me this evening. It has been an honor and a privilege. I think it's so important for authors to help authors. That's the only way we're going to succeed. That's the only way we're going to do well. It's the only way we're going to make the New York Times bestsellers list is if we help each other. So I'm glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah, thank you for helping me because I've had many a sleepless night over my book baby. But also I love the fact that every day this week you have a debut author that you're featuring, So thank you.
It's nothing like that first time, and I think that's why I love the title for the week, The First Time because there is nothing like putting out that first book. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I wish you well on your journey. Thank you so much, and good luck with Malcolm and Me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blooms. We appreciate you tuning in tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow up at 7 p.m., same time, same place, I am going to be interviewing Catherine West. She is the author of Saving Ruby King, which I have heard amazing things about that book. And so I can't wait to speak with her. On Thursday, I'm going to be talking to Rachel Beanland, and that's going to be at 1 o'clock on Thursday. So
another Richmonder.
Another Richmonder and another first-time author. So stay tuned, come back and join us, support Robin. Robin also put all your information in the chat so that they can find you with the pre-order buttons and all of that.
Okay.
Well, okay. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.